Good afternoon, everyone. Alan Boyer is actually new to our university. He came here to help us fill the schedule in place of the late Dr. Wendell Stone. So when he came, he was really coming to help us with public speaking. But when we took a perusal of his resume, we were just really blown away. And so just so happened we had another position open. He did apply for it, and we're very pleased that he'll be with us this August. But I just wanted to mention that he does do consulting with colleges and universities, and his main area of emphasis is branding, market branding. He will be teaching with us both for sports communications, convergence journalism, and he'll also make some contributions in public relations. And so we're very honored that he has accepted this morning our invitation to share with us on communication. He shares with Corporate 500 companies. He has his own consulting firm, and so we're really looking forward to him sharing with us today. Alan Boyer.
Good morning. How are you? We're good? Good. How many of you are just ready to go back to your office and write that next email? Because this is how many emails we sent from August to January. 30 million. Yes, that's students. That's faculty, that's staff. So are we going for 40 million? Is that the next goal? Well, let's think about this. Is email a blessing, a curse, or both? Both, okay? Well, when I think about the blessing side, I think about it from the sender's standpoint. Yes, it's easy to communicate. You can send email whenever you want to, anytime, anywhere. It's cheap, it's quick, it's easy to use. You can copy others, send attachments, fill up other people's mailboxes, large files, schedule meetings. And it's so easy because you don't have to have that invasive phone call or that someone who pops into your office. When I think about the curse for the sender, okay, the curse for the sender is that you have to power up your computer, you have to find the website, you have to find the email login. There's all these steps you have to go through just to read the email. Think about that. Now, have you ever been in a situation where you're walking down the hall and someone says, "Did you get my email?" And then you say, "No, I haven't." Then they say, "Okay, well, I'll talk to you later." Well, you're right there. Talk to them then. What's wrong with that? There's nothing wrong with that. Now, we have to decide if we're going to respond and how we're going to respond. And in that time frame, we're missing a lot of our own productivity. There's a study out there that says we are distracted by emails every 20 minutes. Think about that. Distracted by emails every 20 minutes. Okay, well then what else is involved with the curse? Well, there's spam, there's hoaxes, there's viruses, confidential information going where it's not supposed to go. There's also misunderstandings. And even in your private life, as well as your office life, there's an assumption because you press send that communication actually took place. Take a look at this cartoon. Can you see the head? See what's going on there? When Camilla called me, I was in Kansas spending some time with my parents in December. And she said, "Alan, we'd like for you to talk to the LDI group." And I said, "Well, I've only been around 4 months. What do they want me to talk about?" Well, we sent out some emails to some folks. I talked to some folks, and I want to thank them for spending time with me and responding to the email. And one of the first things I did was I looked at our strategic plan. Okay, where are we trying to go? And the one word that stood out for me was the word best. Okay, that word stood out to me. And I just would like to take a little time to kind of let you know, I've worked at some companies that are pretty good at what they do. Okay, I've been a media relations manager at the Coca-Cola Company, senior vice president of marketing and communications for the Federal Home Loan Bank of Atlanta. I've had some pretty decent jobs. And in each of those roles, I was responsible for executive communications, marketing, employee communications, and all those roles to help the organization meet its strategic goals. So that's some of the things I'm going to be talking about today. In addition to that, Camilla mentioned that I teach here, and I'm enjoying it here. It's a lot of fun. The students are great students. I also teach part-time at Kennesaw State University. Boo. Right? Okay. I've been teaching at other schools in the university system of Georgia, and I've enjoyed that as well. As Camilla mentioned, I launched a marketing firm back in 2005 with some business partners, and we do some consulting with graduate schools, undergraduate schools, and small businesses. Some of our clients have included McDonald's, the Robinson College of Business, and today we're working with the Coles College of Business at Kennesaw State University with their Cox Family Enterprise Center. What do I do for fun? I'm a youth development basketball coach with the Atlanta Hawks. I got my red on today. The whole idea is I like to be involved in a lot of different things, so I am really busy, but I love what I do. Now, let's go back to that word, the best. What does that mean for us? Well, of the highest quality, excellence, or standing, yes. I agree with all those things. To achieve that goal, to get to where we're trying to go, we've got to have exceptional programs, and I think we're on the way to do that, because I've seen a lot of the listings of our online MBA programs, and I think we have a really good foundation for developing that. We have to have talent. We have to have mature systems and processes. We've got to make some decisions about what we're going to start doing, what we're going to stop doing, and what we're going to continue to doing in order to turn this ship in the direction that you say you want to go. But most importantly, you've got to have effective communicators to make that happen. What do I mean by that? Well, for the next couple of minutes, I want to talk to you about just some highlights of what I think an effective communicator is. Then I want to go through a discussion about going the extra inch, and I'll explain that concept here in a little bit. One thing to realize is that 80% of your day is spent communicating with other people. 80% of your day. The other thing you have to realize is that there's a process that we need to really think about before we decide to communicate with someone. First of all, we've got to know the person we're trying to communicate with. A lot of times people start with the message. They go, yeah, I'm going to send an email out. But they don't think about the audience they're going to actually send their message to. And the reason why it's important to think about the audience, there's 250 people in here. That means there are 250 different frames of reference. You all are filtering everything that's said in here through your own experiences, your education, your values, your beliefs. All those things provide a filter for you as an audience. So it's really important to understand who you're going to communicate with before you actually decide to communicate. The other steps, decide what the desired behavior is. What do you want your audience to do? What do you want them to think? And you've got to figure out the message that's going to get that desired behavior. Some people write the message first and then try to figure out, well, maybe hopefully they'll understand what they're supposed to do. But the whole idea is identify the behavior that you want before you actually write the message. And from there, yes, you can decide the channel. Yeah, you can do email. We're pretty good at that. There's face-to-face, good old-fashioned face-to-face. There's also phone calls. There's all kinds of channels that we have at our disposal to communicate to the people we want to communicate with. And then lastly, we have to make sure that we confirm understanding. Remember, pressing the send button is not communicating. You're just sending out information. Okay, you're disseminating information. That's not communicating. So be thinking about how you're going to confirm that the message was received and understood. That's the entire communications process that we have to be involved with. Well, then what is effective communication? Well, there's a definition. You know, communication that maintains or enhances the relationship in which it occurs. Yeah, okay. Well, then what's an effective communicator? Well, I think the effective communicator demonstrates interpersonal competence, prepares to communicate, is a good public speaker, and masters online communication. I'm going to break a couple of these down for you. When I talk about interpersonal competence, that's being supportive of your staff and your colleagues, doing a favor, giving a helping hand, and whenever there's a need in the organization, being there to support those folks. Avoid bringing personal issues, relationship issues to work. Those things can really hamper productivity, and so you need to understand how those things do work and how you need to avoid doing those things. When disagreeing with the boss, I used to say, pray first. Okay? Then ask clarifying questions so that you can get to a discussion of pros and cons. I know some folks in here might be uncomfortable challenging the boss, but the whole idea is you want to make sure that you are meeting the expectations, so asking questions should be okay. And they've got to be the right kind of questions, and it's got to be the right kind of environment, but I also think it's very important for us to understand how to do that. Was that a high five or something? Was I good on that? Okay, good. I'm watching you, okay? Okay, when evaluating staff performance, you probably heard the concept of the sandwich. Begin with positive, then give the critique, and then close with positive. That's one way to actually help your staff understand what's expected in an environment that they will be interested in hearing what you have to say and actually execute what you want them to execute. When there's an issue with a colleague, have that conversation in private. Just sit on that for a second. Have that conversation in private. Sometimes we use email for that. And in email, you really can't, there's no communications process there in email. Okay? There's no verbals to deal with, there's no nonverbals to deal with, and you just press and send back and forth. Press and send back and forth. And the whole idea is that's not going to be a productive or an effective way to resolve issues in going forward. Last but not least, always stress the positive. Always. Yes, there are going to be challenges. You guys are trying to really develop a strategic plan. I saw the airplane up on the screen, flying the airplane while you're trying to change. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I say, drinking water from a fire hose, change the tire while the car is moving. Yes, you're in that process right now, and you have to remain diligent and be positive the whole time. Our challenge is that 93% of what we communicate, 93% of what people get from our communication is nonverbal. 93% of what people get from our communication is nonverbal. That's not leaving much room for your verbal. So let's talk about your nonverbals for a second. Eye contact. Ever been in a situation where you're shaking somebody's hand and they won't look at you? That's a tough one. Go out on a date or you're out with some folks and they won't look at you. Eye contact sends messages that you can't, like that. The whole idea here is to understand the role eye contact plays in a setting like this. Now, I can't make eye contact with everybody in the room. I can't do that, okay? But I have to identify quadrants that I'm going to actually look at while I'm presenting, okay? The whole idea is when you're in this kind of a room, you have to make sure I call it spreading the love across the whole entire room. That's going to be really important. In a one-on-one session or in a classroom session, yes, you want to make sure you establish eye contact and sustain that. Then there's personal appearance. Think about it. Before you say a word, people are making judgments about you by how you look. Your clothes. Somebody told me I look cute today. I said, good, okay? The whole idea is to understand that people are making judgments about your walk, your hair, your clothes, your shoes, your earrings. All those things are communicating messages to the people you're communicating with. So be aware of how you're appearing before you actually engage someone in conversation. Then there's those facial expressions. I can't convince you that I'm happy if I have a frown on my face. I can't convince you that I'm sad if I'm grinning. This is just creepy. I don't know what that's about, okay? So what do we do with that 7% that we have left? Well, we have to structure our message. There's something called the 7 C's. You're probably familiar with them. And some of the stuff it's probably just a review for you. But let me just go through those real quickly. Whenever you're trying to communicate with someone, you want to make sure you're clear, concise. Concise is an important thing. That's hard for us, right? When I open an email and there's more than one paragraph, I close it. I just don't have time. Because email's not for this. Email's for this. And the whole idea is when you understand that, and that will increase productivity tremendously. So understand how email can be an effective tool for you going forward for your communications. Be correct, proofread your work. And the last one down there, be courteous. We're losing some of that, but I think it's an opportunity for us to get it back. Then there's volume. If you make it hard for us to hear you, and I've been to some meetings here on campus where there wasn't a mic system, and the person was speaking like this in the group, and there's about 50 people in the room, and you couldn't hear. That's tough. And if you make us work to hear you, we will stop trying to hear you. We also need to understand you. So in a room like this, if you have something to say, go to a mic. Because I want to hear the question too, and other people want to hear the question too. So but remember that. In that situation, you want to be heard. You're standing up to be heard, so make sure that you're taking advantage of all the technology so that you actually can be heard. Recognize this guy? He can get away with that, having a monotone brand, but you can't. You have to think about varying your rate, varying your pitch, and varying your volume. That makes you that much more interesting to listen to. It gives you energy, and you have to understand how that works, because it's really important that you demonstrate energy when you're communicating with others. Now, a couple other things to think about. Mouth smacks. I heard some mouth smacks today. You know what I'm talking about? I heard some of that today. And I looked at some of the videos from past LDIs. And it's important to understand all those things are just fillers. Okay, vocalize pauses. And that's anxiety, that's all it is. And you have to think about all the things that you're doing when you're presenting. It's a big deal. I'm moving around up here because my anxiety is in my feet. And I know where it is. It's in my hands too, that's why I dropped this. Because it's in my hands too. But I'm holding on to this thing for dear life. The other thing is to understand how your volume, how your rate, and your pitch really communicate a mood. Attitude is very important. Excitement, enthusiasm. If you're going to be positive all